thank you again. And we'll move on very quickly to our next conversation, which is centered around occupier requirements and the implications for the office market across Africa's leading cities. Again, I'll bring up our moderator, who will be on stage to receive other members of the panel conversation. So please join me as I make welcome our able moderator for this conversation, Dolapo Omidure, the founder of Estate Intel. Thank you for the applause that I didn't have to ask for. Thank you. So Dolapo will be on stage to receive other members of this conversation. We have joining this conversation Frank Okoso, Senior Partner and Chief Executive Officer at Knight Frank Nigeria Limited, who is represented by Yinka Omoni, Head of Capital Markets at Knight Frank Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope my clap will be as loud. My name is Paul Wange. I work with Landmark Africa. We're real estate developers, but we were service office operators for 20 years across Africa.
Just to get in on that as well, I'm Dolapo Omidure, the founder of Estate Intel, and essentially we're a real estate data platform for the African real estate industry. I think we've got Henry. Henry, can you hear us? Seems like you're on mute.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yes, so my name is Henry Onyeche. I'm the sales director for REDA Nigeria, and we've been in this business for 16 years. And you also add that to have a good partner sitting down there as well. That's Paul.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to veer away from the questions I asked. I hope you guys will allow me to do this. Just to set the tone for the conversation, I think we know we're here to talk about occupier preferences, how the market has changed post-COVID, with, of course, the phenomenon of working from home, flexibility, and all of that. I think what I would really like to do to set the tone for the conversation is get an individual perspective of how COVID affected work in your businesses. So pre-COVID, what was it like? During COVID, what was the strategy? And what is the current strategy now? So are you working from home? How many days? Are you back in the office full time? Can you walk us through that Yinka first, and then I'll pass it all the way down?
So I think that pre-COVID, we had a lot of conversations, staying, how they were living, to know if the space was okay for them. Also, the issue of insecurity led a lot of people to move into gated communities, which sort of drove rentals and sale prices at that time. But if I go to after COVID now, we did adopt the strategy of having inspections done virtually. We had to be sure that we were just able to sell the market very well to whoever we're marketing to. But now that everybody's back at the office, we're working fully. There's no remote or no hybrid working. Everybody's in the office, and then we're seeing a lot of traction across all types of assets as we speak.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Paul, do you want to tell us how, specifically your company, how you've been working?
Yes. So, I suppose, maybe if you don't mind me starting by saying that COVID was effectively the biggest health and economic crisis that anybody in this room would have faced in the world, certainly in a generation. So everything changed. How we dealt with that, different people dealt with it in different ways. But I think the biggest thing about real estate is, or the hardest thing is, how do you create real estate during the toughest times? How do you do the things that other people find very tough? And that's how you do work in real estate. Anything that's easy is not really profitable. So during COVID, this particular was extremely tough, but we had to find a way to develop. So during that time, we developed the second phase of our bid. We developed the Nigerian University of Technology and Management University. We did the COVID Center, for those that know, and I think we developed our retail boulevard during that time as well. And it was tough, it was difficult because accessibility, supply chains had been disrupted and stuff. It was tough, and we had minimal workforce because everybody was at home. And what we did is that we got a number of the team in, and we camped them within Landmark to deliver these things. What has happened post-COVID? Obviously, we had this saying when we're in the service office business that you don't have to go to work to be at work, right? So it's sort of similar. Those that have to be at work, there's no way a public can work from home, right? Those that have to be at work are at work, and those that don't have to be at work physically are wherever they are. What's important is getting the work done. But I think it's fair to say we're now in an era of normality, or at least the new normal.
Yeah, I agree. I think over the past at least 6 to 9 months, things have started to normalize, and I think most of the companies that are most likely going back to the office are already back there, as Inka has mentioned. Off the tail of what you had mentioned in your first statement, Inka, can you, I guess, walk us through some of the clients that you're engaging with, the type of requirements they have when they're looking for space? So how has that changed, and I guess what are the most interesting things you've seen evolve post-COVID and now?
So for office spaces, basically, we've had people try to reduce the spaces that are currently occupied. This was during the COVID era. People were looking at the fact that we have people coming from the houses. People were not working at the office, so we didn't need that much space. So there were a lot of space reduction at that time. And in that same time, we had people that wanted more space because they wanted to keep the distance between their staff within their space. Now, you have somebody that was maybe occupying about 500 square meters and tells you, okay, I want to move to 700 square meters, but then you have to have conversations regarding the rentals with the landlord. And because at that time it was basically a tenant market, if anyone was moving out of the property, landlords were going to look at how to give concessions to ensure that they remain in those properties. So for them, they're expanding their space, but the bottom line in terms of income-wise, it wasn't as large as expected. So that was one of a lot of things that were happening. And when you look at the sectors that were into this, the financial services were always in that space, and we had a few oil and gas companies, both local and international, that were also looking to get into those spaces. Funny thing is that we had people that wanted quite a huge side of space. When I say, in thousands, because they're a big multinational company and they just wanted to, looking at how to expand into a different class of building, looking at, occupancy costs, operational costs, it concerns their businesses. And a couple of requirements were, all around parking. Basically, parking was one of the things. The efficiency of the building. One thing COVID revealed to us was that now FM was at stake at that time. If you had a bad FM, then there was a problem. Your FM had to be top notch in that period. So a couple of clients were looking at that particular scenario. So when they get to a property, they're just studying the FM guide, not even the building itself. And then that gives them an indication of what kind of services they're going to get in those properties. People were looking at things like the wait time of elevators, because you have just 3 or 2 elevators in the building, and then if I'm taking about 4,000 square meters of space in your building, that means I have a massive population of staff coming to that building. So if I have to wait 3-4 minutes rather than if I can do 1 or 2 minutes, then those were things that people were looking at, and it sort of changed dimension as to what kind of property we're looking at that time, basically. Because we don't have a high volume of great buildings, so it also got to question. People were not particular about a few things. You have buildings that have gyms, you have buildings that have canteens, and we're not even functioning at that time. But people just wanted a very functional and efficient space, and that was what really designed what we were looking for from those clients.
Okay, thank you. One of the important points that you mentioned that we've also seen is the importance of the facility manager. We did some surveys over the past 3 months, mainly because of the diesel price increase, and a lot of residential properties, though not office, have been under pressure. The newfound scrutiny that occupiers and tenants are looking at their service charge, the diesel report. People are telling me I need to give you more money. How did you spend that? It's really uncovering a lot of holes that had been covered in the past. One thing back to the office segment, and I think I want to pass this to Paul now. From an investor perspective, the attractiveness of the office market relative to the residential is that you can deliver it in a core and shell format. So you just build an office, fix the exterior, build the parking, and then you leave the space for the tenant to fit out, right? But if the demand from the tenant side is looking for more turnkey solutions, like the likes of Regis or formerly Landmark can offer, how does that really affect the return profile of the office market as an investment class?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are two different things. The investment criteria for a developer will be very different from the investment criteria for a service office operator. When we made that transition from service office operator to developer, we ran both for a period of time, and we very much realized that the tensions are too severe to run. One is very short term and one is long term. One is asset based, one is service based. And you literally needed two teams, so you almost needed two balance sheets. And when Henry said his partner sitting here, me, was literally because of that. Some of you may even know I started my career at Regis. So from an investment criteria perspective, I would say if you're a service office business, the climate or the future is pretty good. I think I've touched something here. It's pretty good in that I think with the effects of the pandemic, with modern ways of working, with technology, the increase in technology in buildings, the service office market is bound to flourish. But it's now more of a lifestyle market than literally just a go-to-work market, because people have just changed the way they live, work and play, right? So I think any service office operator that introduces sort of a more comprehensive service package to the delivery of office services will do well, and I think the investors will recognize that in the numbers. From a real estate property point of view, as I said, ours is a very long ball game. So what we would like to see is to create these office spaces, let service office operators take over a section of those spaces to run the short term. We continue to run the long term, and just have a variety of tenancies in the building, and hopefully give our investment criteria just from an occupancy perspective and a dollar per square foot perspective, some substance. So that's the way I would look at it.
Thank you. I think the knowledge there is, I guess, the separation of the two businesses. It's very hard to run both of them concurrently. I think right now we find that a lot of landlords are trying to incorporate service office spaces into their property because they're seeing the demand from the occupier side. So would you recommend, or how do you recommend landlords try and, I guess, deliver that service? Is it by partnering with a Regis or a service office space provider, or trying to do something else? I mean, what's the typical best structure?
Yeah, so I mean, it's tough on different horses for different courses, but I would say that partnering with an organization that's dedicated to delivering a service is always the best way. I mean, the fact that you have IT in your business doesn't mean you don't use external IT people. The fact that you have a lawyer doesn't mean you don't use a law firm to do your transaction. So I think the service office is the same, and it's actually even more important because it's of more substance. I mean, mistakes could be quite costly. So I would say partnering is obviously an option. If partnering is not for you, because we unfortunately come from a country not everybody wants to partner, then maybe you create your own team. But if you create your own team, you need some separation, and you need separation not just in operations, but you need separation in terms of responsibilities. So I would recommend that you create a dedicated, flexible office team. And to do that, you probably find it more expensive, and you probably get a bloody nose from the mistakes you make that other people understand already.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask if Henry is still on the call. Or still
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, we can't see you. But, okay, great.
Oh, wow.
So as Regis is is a supplier for many of the existing buildings. You find that most of the Grade A, Grade B office properties in Victoria Island and VI have tenants that have come out of Regis. Most likely they come into Nigeria, spend a year, 1 or 2 years in Regis, and decide to expand. It's like a welcome hub, we could say. What do you think landlords who are receiving the occupiers that are expanding out of Regis, and what do you think they need to understand about the occupier requirements in this day and age?
A solution. They want everything to be provided. They just want to come in and do their business. So most times when they transition, like you said, and they go to standalone or conventional specifically, like they are looking for something that close to what they have just left, and they're looking for something that's ready-made. So that requires a little bit more investment from the landlords, and that's why Paul mentioned that while it's desirable, can have the similar kind of service that they're getting from Regis or any other provider for that matter. They can get similar kind of service. The landlords need to now start looking at how can they support those kind of customers coming out from places.
It has really affected the way and manner they do the valuations, because the only key thing that I can say here is, because rents are either dollarized or in naira, and now there's that situation where you have to balance what rate to use when valuing, because there's the official rate and then there's the black market rate for the valuations. So, in putting it simply, I don't think that the COVID has really had that much effect on the valuations, aside from this major issue of the dollar to the naira factor.
So I mean, what brings
I don't know the details of comparables in the market and that's all. That's a very difficult question you asked him, because if the CBN governor was in the room and you're recognizing another rate, you could be running down the wrong alley.
I'm certainly not. But I think just if you can also continue, I guess, from the investor perspective, now that you're obviously executing one of your new projects in the Waterview, even though that's residential, I guess, how has the COVID, but as Yinka put it as well, the devaluation in the Naira, how is that changing the landscape for you as you're trying to execute a new real estate investment?
Okay, so I was listening attentively to the last panel, and I think one of the speakers wrapped it all up. And at the end of the day, you have to match pricing. So we know that 75% of the content of a building is forex based. So somewhere along the line, you need to match that pricing on the sales end or the rental end. You can't buy one currency and sell another currency in the building environment. Because, so I suppose I've lost my train of thought completely. But I think
we're talking about matching pricing.
All right, so I thought we were talking about fire now. So matching pricing was one, and I think the other point I wanted to make is real estate is a very long ball game, and it really means that inflation is a natural hedge in real estate, so you don't have to be worried about too many things in terms of inflation. But the currency mismatch is something that one has to target and be concerned about, because you have to find foreign exchange to build real estate. It's as simple as that. And when you produce a building many years later, you have to be able to pay for it. So I would say that what have we learned? We obviously have a whole mix of different types of properties. So we deal with different industries. Some of them are naira-based industries. You simply can't sell a sandwich or beer in foreign currencies, full stop, right? But you can sell hardcore real estate in foreign currency in some aspects, especially if you have international clients. So we use that to sort of hedge.
Just to show some love to Henry, because I think it's been us three since. But Henry, I think, do you have any additional comments on, I guess, the occupier landscape in Nigeria and how demand might have shifted for service office space and co-working space actually specifically?
People want to have a presence. They want to have a business name with an address. So that was more like the in during period. But post-pandemic, we've seen a lot of people coming back to the office now. So we have the better office business doing very well. The co-work business, is growing. Particularly, we've seen a lot of startups, trying to find a way into, an environment that is more the kind of business that they do for growth. So I think now what we're now seeing is, opportunity for, even greater partnership between both customers and us. So what I mean by that is, now we are moving towards a hybrid, office kind of environment. So what that means is corporations, big enterprises, they're now looking for better profitable solutions, for office. To work flexibly, either from home or from an office that is closer to their homes. So those are, the kind of opportunities that we have going into the future. And that's what, many corporations today are now, embracing.
Okay, thank you. Just for closing remarks now, because I think we're out of time, I would just like to go around and ask everyone, I guess at the beginning of the pandemic specifically, everybody thought it was the end of the office market as we know it, everybody's going to work from home forever. But as we're seeing now, that's definitely not the case. Over the next, let's look much further out now though, let's say 5 to 10 years, let's pin it at 2030. How do you think the office market and how do you think occupiers are going to be demanding for space? What do you think that might look like?
So I think that, we're gradually shifting from the tenants market to the landlords market now, because landlords are spending a lot of money to put these buildings out there. We want to get buildings whereby they don't have to pay so much. Look at the cost of diesel now, and people will be looking at buildings that would ensure that their operational costs are slightly reduced than what it used to be. Also, I think that people will be will be looking at flexible leases in terms of lease administration. In that I mean that before now you could sign a lease and there's going to be hard for you to exit that lease. Like when we had COVID, people wanted to just leave it and start working from home or something, but because of the leases that they signed, they couldn't do that. But moving forward, people will ensure that they sign leases whereby if there's anything like a COVID again, they can easily just say they want to leave, and that would ensure that it's going to be a win-win situation. Maybe there are clauses that might favor the landlord as well in those kind of situations. But I think over time, the economy is going to grow. As we see currently, there's a lot of traction right now, I tell you that, for a lot of offices, and I'm sure that it will only continue in that line. Whatever happens 2023 is just around the corner, so whatever policies will come up from the new government also might hinder or either grow the office sector. So, but I think in the next few years, we're likely to see growth of larger requirements, larger space requirements, but also building efficiency and everything that has to do with that. Thank you.
So I agree with absolutely everything you said, and so I'd like to ask the question from a different angle, but with the same perspective, or the same context. I like to see three things. I like to look at three things as the future of any business, and the real estate business and the office market business in particular resonates with it. And I call it my 3 Ps: people, profit, and planet. For people, I think we need to design and provide spaces that are fit for people, and how people behave, and how people work, and how people live, and what people actually want. Real estate is the relationship between people and environment. If you meet that relationship, you will do well. If you don't, you may not. Planet, we know, as you said, it's just so important. Sustainability is real, and it's going to be talked about for many years to come. It's going to become more and more important, and we've seen what's happening with the floods, with the rains, with the weather. I think the real estate industry will soon start getting forced to do certain things. So it's best to do it voluntary before you start getting forced to do it. So the plan is important. And then lastly, profits. Because if you don't have money, you're not going to continue your business. And again, I think just looking at your return on investment is important. What are the things to do, where you do it, and how you do it that produces the best return on investment? I think it's extremely important. So I think those are the 3 things to watch out for in the office market and in the real estate market.
Okay, thank you. People, planet, profit, most important. Henry, do you want to just give us a final comment?
What that means is people want, to have a balanced work life. You want to be productive, more productive. And if you look at the time, it takes people to commute, from their homes to work. Sometimes, they have to spend hours, at work. So it makes sense in future for us to have, offices that are replicated just right 15 minutes to, their homes. So I see a future where, we go into hybrid working. So the HQ will still be, somewhere maybe in Island or maybe somewhere in the mainland, but people will be able to, just commute for about 15 minutes, to get to their work. And, from their home to, where the office will be, will not necessarily be a HQ. It could be, a service office, an apartment, or it could be, maybe a co-working space. For profit, corporations, enterprises want to reduce, their fixed real estate. We have the case where people, are not always on the road, trying to get to office and, being held up, in long queues of traffic. The alternative would be, let them work from home or let them work for somewhere, an office closer to home. In that way, we reduce the carbon emission, to Vietnam.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Yinka. Thank you, Henry. I'm going to open the floor for questions. So if you've got any questions, let me know.
How the short leases affect your valuations in the capital markets today? And I was just curious to know if you've had any, pushback for having leases that expire in less than 12 months. And I'm also curious, Mr. Paul specifically, how do you juxtapose between high quality tenants and high quality long-term ironclad leases? Is there like a line in between those two where, you take a high quality tenant with a flexible lease to get them in the door versus lower quality tenant, but they'll pay you for 5 years, a fixed price?
So if you take them out of and pay separately, it's those two things. I would say, because I've moved out of the service office business into the long-term property development business, and it's more a yield play now than anything else, I would go for the covenant of the tenant rather than the shortness of the lease. But my counterparts on the other side of the fence will do the best.
Thank you. Yinka?
We haven't really had any pushback from valuations done for the short leases because the facts are there and it speaks for itself. So there's really nothing to argue about. So when it's short lease, then everything will work based on that lease, and then you get your value for the property. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
So I have a question for Mr. Henry. So he said something about the industry moving to the hybrid space, and as regards to service rentals. So in the coming years, do you think if every other person is moving to, or the companies are moving to hybrid way of using the services, do you think in the coming years the value, or rather the profit that is coming, would be in a positive regards rather than negative? I don't know if you understand my question. So it's basically, so if a company that has probably a working space of probably 100 persons, and because they want to move to the hybrid, and some persons will have to probably work from home, it means that they'll have to rent a smaller space. So in the coming years, do you think if they go into that route, is the service sector a viable project, rather than, instead of going to probably the developing sector?
We start with the number you have. So say I have only 20 people now, I can start with 20. And as the company grows, you can add in more space, you can add in more rooms. But on the other way around, you have a fixed cost. When you take as a HQ, you already have a fixed cost. And you don't have paying for space that you do not need. So yes, you save costs, you make more money and save costs when you leave from the fixed HQ office with a large space, and you now kind of diversify, if you like, into shared spaces, to grant the opportunity for your customers or for your staff rather, to commute, within.
Thought leaders who are eminent and have done an excellent job, like these panelists. Can we applaud them one more time? Thank you. You can please rise for a group photograph. Thank you. Again, we'll be leaving Henry out, but we'll take the photos on your behalf. But thank you very much, Henry, for making out time to join us virtually. You were here earlier, but you had to go. Thank you.